Hey friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Mar, and by the time this video is up on the internet, it should be the beginning of December, which is crazy, but I'm here to present you with my 10 before the end, and hopefully by the time this video is posted, I have started or read some of these books in my stack that I have for my 10 before the end. But for those of you who are not familiar with the saying or the concept, pretty much it is the 10 books that I want to get through before the end of the year. That is where this concept comes from. And so I'm just going to walk you through the books that I have on my stack. And me being me, for some reason, I love to procrastinate when it comes to reading all of the wonderful books that have been released this year. And I save the scariest and the most intimidating books till the end of the year. So I'm going to be walking you through my whole stack based off of least intimidating books to most intimidating books, because I love to keep myself on my toes and I love to give myself a deadline as to when I need to complete all of these 700 to 1,000 page books. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into my 10 before the end. So with the pace that I'm going at this year, I should be able to complete all of these books on my TBR. I think because my reading goal is also 100 books this year, and I'm currently at book 87. 88 maybe. So these books will definitely count toward my reading goal if I stay with the momentum that I have. And so let's get into the first book. The first book that I have on my 10 before the end is The Spellshop by Beth Durst. And this is a cozy fantasy book that I believe the vibes are like it's in a way an interconnected standalone series. And so there has been, I believe, one or two books that have been released after that, but it takes place in the same universe but with different characters with the leads. But I don't know, I've just seen this everywhere, and so I picked it up because it was at HomeSense for a pretty decent price. And the thing about me though is I don't know why I picked it up when I know I'm not a cozy fantasy reader type girly. And so this one might actually be hard for me to pick up. But I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a try and see how I like it. And, maybe if I'm in a setting where I want to sit and relax and just read something that isn't super action based, then, I think this will be a really good book to pick up. I just need to be in that mood to read cozy fantasy. And I feel like a lot of the cozy fantasy books that I read kind of forcefully because I wasn't in a cozy fantasy mood. And so I'm not going to give you a plot synopsis of this. We're actually going to read what this book is about. So, in the writing, it says, a lush cottage core tale full of stolen spellbooks, unexpected friendships, sweet jams, and even sweeter love. Keela has always had trouble dealing with people. Thankfully, as a librarian at the Great Library of Elysium, she and her assistant, Kaz, a magically sentient spider plant, have spent the last decade sequestered among the Empire's most precious spellbooks, preserving their magic for the city's elite. When a revolution begins and the library goes up in flames, she and Kaz flee with all the spellbooks they can carry and head to a remote island Keela never thought she'd see again, her childhood home. Taking refuge there, Keela discovers, much to her dismay, a nosy and very handsome neighbor who can't take a hint and keeps showing up day after day to make sure she's fed and to help her fix up her new home. In need of income, Keela identifies something that even the bakery in town doesn't have: jam. With the help of an old recipe book her parents left her and a bit of illegal magic, her cottage garden is soon covered in ripe berries. But magic can do more than make life a little sweeter, so Keela risks the consequences of using unsanctioned spells and opens the island's first ever and much needed secret spell shop. Like a Hallmark rom-com full of mythical creatures and fueled by cinnamon buns and magic, the spell shop will heal your heart and feed your soul. Actually, this book actually sounds super interesting now that I've read the description of it. I also have that really bad habit of, buying books because people recommend it to me, but not knowing what they are. And then when I read the book, I'm surprised about what I'm reading. And so maybe going into these books actually kind of knowing what they're talking about will be a little bit more beneficial going into my 10 before the end. But yeah, The Spell Shop is the first book I have on my list. It sounds very interesting. And so I feel like this would be a really good December read, especially once it starts to snow and I'm like literally snowed in and I can't leave my house or I don't want to leave my house. I think this would be a really good book to pick up. So yeah, this is the first one on my 10 Before the End. So the next book on my 10 Before the End is The Floating World by Axie, and this is a book I actually recently picked up. And I've seen this all over my like Instagram feed and all that for the past year or however long it was released, even probably before then. But this is written by the author Axie, and I'm familiar with her books based off of some previous reading vlogs I've done, specifically my K-pop romances reading vlog. And so she wrote the books XOXO and ASAP and all of that, and those are about K-pop trainees or falling in love with K-pop idols and all that very like cheesy YA rom-coms that are based off of the K-pop culture. I believe this is part of her new fantasy duology. So another fantasy book she's written is Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I haven't read that one yet, but I have heard good things about it. And so for this one, I wanted to pick it up because the newest book in the duology just got released and it looks super interesting. And so this is the first book of it. And again, I don't know what this is about. It's a very common theme watching my videos at all, but let's read the synopsis. Sunho lives in the underworld, a land of perpetual darkness. An ex-soldier, he can remember little of his life from before 2 years ago, when he woke up alone with only his name and his sword. Now he does odd jobs to scrape by until he comes across the score of a lifetime, a chest of coins for any mercenary who can hunt down a girl who wields silver light. Meanwhile, far to the east, Ren is a cheerful and spirited acrobat traveling and performing with her adoptive family. But everything changes during one of their festival performances when the village is attacked by a horrific human-like demon. In a moment of fear and rage, Ren releases a blast of silver light, a power she has kept hidden since childhood, and kills the monster. But her efforts are too late to prevent her adoptive family from suffering a devastating loss, or to save her beloved uncle from being grievously wounded. Determined to save him from succumbing to poison wound, Ren sets over the mountains where the creature came from, and from where Ren herself fled 10 years ago. Her path sets her on a collision course with Sunho, but he doesn't realize that she's the girl he and 100 other swords for hire is looking for. As the two grow closer through their travels, they come to realize that their paths and destinies are far more entwined than either of them could have imagined. Again, this one sounds super interesting. YA fantasy that is definitely inspired by Korean culture. And not gonna lie, I bought this book also because the guy looks like Mako from The Legend of Korra, and that is one of my favorite shows. So selfishly, I had to pick this up. But yeah, this is another one of the reads on my 10 Before the End. So the next book I have on my 10 Before the End is also another Asian fantasy book, and that is Never Ever After by Sulin Tan. And so Sulin Tan is most known for her book The Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and I believe that's a series, or it might be a duology actually, but this is her new book. I don't really know if it's a standalone or not, but from what I heard is that this book is a Chinese mythology inspired retelling of Cinderella, which is so interesting, and Cinderella is always going to be one of my favorite stories. And so, yeah, let's read the description of this because we do not want me to make up a description. So, fate isn't forged in iron. Life in the Iron Mountains is harsh and unforgiving. After the death of her beloved uncle, Yining has survived by becoming a skilled thief and an even better liar. When she acquires an enchanted ring that holds the key to a brighter future, it is stolen by her step-aunt, and Yining must venture into the imperial heart of the kingdom to seize it back. Amid the grandeur of the palace, Yining catches the eye of the ruthless and ambitious prince, who tempts her with a world she has never imagined. But nothing is as it seems, for she's soon trapped in a tangle of power, treachery, and greed. Her only ally, the cunning advisor from a rival court who keeps dangerous secrets of his own. To break free, she must unravel the mystery of her past and fight for a future that both frightens and calls to her. Never Ever After is a powerful and fierce reimagining of Cinderella, the first in a breathtaking new fantasy romance series influenced by Chinese fairy tales from the acclaimed author of Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Okay, so Asian romance fantasy series say less. I'm so excited to get started on this. And also, I bought this book simply for the book, like the book cover, because you cannot tell me that this hardback book is not stunning. Like, I cannot wait to display this book once I read it. And yeah, I'm super excited to get started on this one. The next book I have on my 10 before the end is one that has been on my TBR since it's been like announced, but I just simply haven't had time to pick it up and all of that. And that is Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. And so, like, I feel like everyone else on Book Talk and in the YouTube community, I love Stephanie Garber's books and writing and all of that. I've read Caraval and I've read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And so now she's come out with Alchemy of Secrets, which is her adult fantasy debut. And so I'm excited to read this because I think the concept of this is super interesting. I believe it's set in 1980s Hollywood and it's about this actress, but from reviews that I've heard about this book is that I feel like it's been a little bit mixed because I feel like with something like an adult fantasy, I think you expect the writing to be a bit different. But what I notice about authors who write both in like adult fantasy and, young adult fantasy, sometimes I think it just depends on what their publishers think that the target audience will enjoy sometimes. So, yeah, it's like this one I am taking a bit of a grain of salt with when it comes to kind of what it's been marketed as. But either way, I'm still super excited to read this. And for the description of this book, it starts with a class in an old movie theater. Folklore 517. Local legends and urban myths taught by a woman called the Professor. Most students believe the Professor's stories are just fiction, but Holland St. James has always been convinced that magic is real. When she tracks down a local legend named the Watchman, so who can supposedly tell you when you'll die, the world finally makes sense. Except that the Watchman tells her that she will die at midnight tomorrow unless she finds an ancient object called the alchemical heart. With the clock ticking, Holland is pulled into this magical world in the heart of Los Angeles and into the path of a magnetic stranger. Everything about him feels like a bad idea, but he promises Holland that her sister sent him to protect her. As they chase clues and stories that take him to the alchemical heart, Holland realizes everyone in this intoxicating new world is lying to her, even the stranger. And if she can't figure out whom to trust, not even the alchemical heart will save her. I just know that this book is going to be very whimsical, and I think Stephanie Garber has this way of just writing these worlds and, really bringing you into these worlds in a very like fun way, and it's so magical, and so I'm really excited to pick this book up. So this next book is also another author whose books I've read and I'm very familiar with, and I'm very familiar with their writing. And so the next book is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. And so this is the special edition of A River Enchanted. I believe this book was released a few years ago, and it is also a part of a duology and all of that, but I saw this in the bookstore and I just had to pick it up and grab it because I just finished reading Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross a few weeks ago, and I love that one. And so I feel like a lot of people have had very good reviews of A River Enchanted compared to especially like the Letters of Enchantment series. I feel like Divine Rivals and all that is a very hit or miss duology, but I heard really good things about this one. And so I'm very excited to read this one and all of that. And this one I actually really don't know what it's about, but again, I'm someone who buys books by their covers. I will admit that, and I'm not ashamed of it. Let's see what this book is actually about. It starts with a letter and an ominous journey across dark waters. 10 years after being sent away to the mainland to become a bard, Jack Tamerlane is summoned home to Cadence. Girls are missing from the island, and Adira, his childhood nemesis and the future leader of the clan, believes Jack is the only one who can find them. The elemental spirits that dwell in every breath of air, splash of water, blade of grass, and flicker of fire find mirth in the lives of the humans, and the bard's music is the only way to summon them and ask that the girls be returned. Yet, as Jack and Adara get closer to solving the mystery, it becomes apparent that an older, darker secret about Cadence lurks beneath the surface, and a harp song may not be strong enough to stop it. With unforgettable characters, a thrilling plot, and a lush folklore-infused world. A River Enchanted is a stirring story of duty, love, and creating harmony between opposing forces. This first book in the Elements of Cadence duology marks Rebecca Ross's brilliant entry into the adult fantasy stage. That is this book, and like, look at these bright edges, but adult fantasy, I feel like that is like Rebecca Ross's just niche and all of that. And I heard this, I don't believe this is spicy or anything. Like, I think it just talks a bit more, like, the writing is a bit more adult and the content is a bit more adult, but overall, I'm super excited to read this. So, as you can probably tell, a lot of these books that are on my 10 before the end are all fantasy books. And so, this next one is also a fantasy book, and that is Red City by Marie Lu. And one thing about Marie Lu is that she has been writing for such a long time, and I've always been like familiar with her name and like the books that she writes, but growing up, I think I only read the Warcross duology, which is one of my favorite like YA duologies of all time because it was just so ahead of its time. I think that like no one understands it except for me. So yeah, but I never really read the Legend series, and I don't think I read Young Elites either. But Marie Lu just published, I believe this is her first adult fantasy book, but this is Red City. And from what I've heard on the discourse online and all that, is that everyone loves this book. Everyone is giving this book like at least above a 4.5 stars. Once I saw that, I was like, okay, I have to get this. I have to see what the hype is about. And so I bought it. And I really like Marie Lu's writing in Warcross and all that. And I love that character and like just like the characters in that universe, that it was just like, I don't know why I never picked up her other books. But, you know, now is the time that I'm finally picking up another one of her books. And so we will see how I like this one. But yeah, this one I believe is about two rival groups or clans and something about alchemy. So let's actually figure out what this is about. So, when you win the game of power, who do you lose? Alchemy is the hidden art of transformation, an exclusive power wielded by crime syndicates that market it to the world's elites in the form of sand, a drug that enhances those who take it into a more perfect version of themselves, more beautiful, more charismatic, simply more. Among the gleaming skyscrapers and rolling foothills of Angel City, alchemy is controlled by two rival syndicates. For years, Grand Central and Lumines have been balanced on a razor's edge between polite negotiation and outright violence. But when two childhood friends step into that delicate equation, the city and the paths of their lives will be irrevocably changed. The daughter of a poor single mother, Sam, would do anything to claw her way into the ranks of Grand Central in search of a better life. Plucked away from his family as a boy to become a Lumines apprentice, Ari is one of the syndicate's brightest rising stars. Once they might have loved each other, but as two alchemists face off across opposite sides of an ever-escalating conflict, ambition will become power, loyalty will become lies, and no transformation may be perfect enough for them to survive the war coming. So this also says that it is The Godfather meets The Magicians in the sweeping adult debut from Marie Lu, and it's marketed as a dark and deadly contemporary fantasy of magical warfare, star-crossed ambition, and the pursuit of perfection at any cost set in a glimmering alternate Los Angeles. I'm just so excited that all of my books on the 10 before the end list are ones I'm actually so excited to read. This sounds so good. And also, it has that star-crossed lovers trope, which is one of my faves. Yes, I am a Romeo and Juliet stan. I love that type of romance, and so, but I do believe that the romance is a subplot. I do think that this is like more just like, again, rivals to lovers, and I do think this is more fantasy and world building, but yeah, I am very excited to read Red City. Okay, now we're moving into the territory of books that I'm, again, very excited to read, but I'm also still terrified of picking up. And so the first book we have in this pile is Blood Over Brighthaven by ML Wang. And so everyone that I've seen who's read this book has literally had no bad, like, comments or anything. Like, or it's like every single person that I've come across who has read this book absolutely loves this, absolutely devoured this. And that's also why I'm kind of terrified of this, is because I'm not ready for the pain that this book is probably going to cause me, because I know a lot of people who read like R.F. Kuang's books and all of that have spoken highly of this one and have liked Emma Wang's books even better than R.F. Kuang. And so, not that I'm comparing those two authors at all. They're both two very smart Asian people who write books that really, really do a lot of emotional damage on people. And I honestly love that for them. But yeah, it's like this is the first Emma Wang book I would be picking up, and I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to ever enter this book in this world, but I know I have to at some point, and so it might as well be the end of this year. So let's learn what actually this book is about. So for 20 years, Siona has devoted every waking moment to the study of magic, fueled by a mad desire to achieve the impossible, to be the first woman ever admitted to the high magistracy at the University of Magics and Industry. When Siona finally passes a qualifying exam and becomes a high mage, she finds her challenges have just begun. Her new colleagues are determined to make her feel unwelcome, and instead of a qualified lab assistant, they give her a janitor. What neither Siona nor her peers realize is that her taciturn assistant was not always a janitor. 10 years ago, he was a nomadic hunter who lost his family on the perilous journey from the wild plains to the city. But now he sees the opportunity to understand the forces that decimated his tribe, drove him from his homeland, and kept the privileged in power. At first, mage and outsider have a fractious relationship, but working together, they uncover an ancient secret that could change the course of magic forever. If it doesn't, get them killed first. Guys, like, the more I start to read these books, the more I start to read these descriptions, I'm just like, oh yeah, like, okay, this is up my alley. There are so many words that I'm coming across that I'm stumbling over, and I'm just like, this is humbling. This is very humbling. This is not how I read in my head. I am excited, nervous, scared, terrified to start this book, but, you know, I do be like that sometimes, and sometimes we have to go through books that will emotionally damage us to learn more about who we are as people and our society. We just got real deep there all of a sudden, but yeah, that is Blood Over Brighthaven, which is on my to be read list. So the next book that I have on my 10 Before the End is the longest book that is going to be on my TBR ever, and that is Alchemized by Senlinyu. And so I feel like everyone and their mother is reading this book right now, or everyone's read it since it got released, and I've been too afraid to start this. This is the newly published version of the fanfiction Manacled by the same author and all of that. And so when it literally got announced, I decided to download Manacled from AO3, and then I just never got to it. I was just like, I was too intimidated to get to it. Then it got traditionally published. And so I just decided to pick up Alchemized instead and not read Manacled, which is what the author is telling people to do anyways, because again, Manacled is technically a Harry Potter fan fiction and all of that. And it's from a different time. And obviously there's a lot of copyright stuff and all of that with that. And so Manacled simply cannot be downloaded anymore from AO3. It's been officially taken off, and so this is now the traditionally published version of Manacled and all of that. And so it is 1,000 pages long. This is a heavy book. This is like I'm literally doing like a weight workout right now. Let's get into what the synopsis of this book is. So, in this riveting dark fantasy debut, a woman with missing memories fights to survive a war-torn world of necromancy and alchemy, and the man tasked with unearthing the deepest secrets of her past. Once a promising alchemist, Helena Marino is now a prisoner of war and of her mind. Her resistance friends and allies have been brutally murdered, her ability suppressed, and the world she knew destroyed. In the aftermath of a long war, Palladia's new ruling class of corrupt and guild families are depraved necromancers whose vile undead creatures help them bring about their victory, hold Helena captive. According to resistance records, she was a healer of little importance within the rank, but Helena has inexplicable memory loss of the months leading up to her capture, making her enemies wonder. Is she truly as insignificant as she appears, or are her lost memories hiding some vital piece of the resistance final gambit? To uncover the memories buried deep within her mind, Helena is sent to the High Reeve, one of the most powerful and ruthless necromancers in this new world. Trapped on his crumbling estate, Helena's fight to protect her lost history and to preserve the last remaining shreds of her former self is just the beginning. Her prison and captor have secrets of their own, secrets Helena must unearth, whatever the cost. That was a rough synopsis for me because I simply don't know how to pronounce the name. Helena. Helena? Helena. It's Helena. It's Helena. I know that. Whatever, it's fine. I think I need to go to bed soon. It's not even that late. It's 5 p.m. I know that this book is another book that will emotionally damage me, but we will have that conversation later. We will deal with that later. So, the last actual fantasy book we have on my 10 Before the End is The Will of the Many by James Islington. I've heard so many good things about this book, and this book just has like a massive fan following. It got released last year, I believe. And since then, everyone has been raving about this. All the fantasy boys out there are raving about this, all the fantasy girls are raving about this. And so I had to follow the herd and pick this up, but pretty much let's learn about what this book is about because I could not tell you. Like, the only discourse I know about this book is the cover discourse because this is the new covers, and a lot of people like the old covers. I'm very indifferent. All I know is I'm getting the paperback because I bought the first book in paperback, and so let's actually learn what this book is about. At the elite Cadanon Academy, a young fugitive uncovers layered mysteries and world-changing secrets. The Cadanon Republic, the hierarchy, must rule the world now, but they do not know everything. I tell them my name is Vis Telemus, and I tell them I was orphaned after a tragic accident 3 years ago, and that good fortune alone has led to my acceptance into their most prestigious world. I tell them that once I graduate, I will gladly join the rest of civilized society in allowing my strength, my drive, and my focus, what they call will, to be leached away and added to the power of those above me, as millions already do, as all must eventually do. I tell them that I belong, and they believe me. But the truth is that I have been sent to the academy to find answers, to solve a murder, to search for an ancient weapon, to uncover secrets that tear the Republic apart. I will never, ever cede my will to the Emperor, to the empire that executed my family. To survive, though, I will still have to rise through the academy's ranks. I will have to smile and make friends and pretend to be one of them and win. Because if I cannot, then those who want to control me, who know my real name, will no longer have any use for me. And if the hierarchy finds out who I truly am, they will kill me. Okay, that kind of threw me into a loop. I did not realize we were talking in first person there for a sec, but yeah, this book, she also thick. She's a biggie, but I do want to read this while I'm in that fantasy mood. Also, all of these books are fantasy, so I have no choice. But yeah, that is the last fantasy book on my 10 Before the End. And now we have my last book, which was on my 10 Before the End last year, and I did not get to it before the end. And that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I feel like everyone except me has read this book, or I don't know. This is a book that I feel like literally everyone recommends, but everyone has such averse reactions to it. Like, some people love it, some people think it's the best book ever, and some people think it's like the worst book ever. It's a very polarizing book, and so I bought this. I don't know why I bought this. It kind of just showed up in my Amazon cart, and then I checked it out, and then it showed up at my door, and here we are. And so, yeah, A Little Life follows four college classmates broke adrift and buoyed only by their friendship and ambition as they move to New York in search of fame and fortune. While their relationships are tinged by addiction, success, and pride, deepened over the decades, the men are held together by their devotion to the brilliant, enigmatic Jude, a man scarred by an unspeakable childhood trauma. A hymn to brotherly bonds and a masterful depiction of love in the 21st century, Hanya Yanagihara's stunning novel is about the families we are born into and those that we make for ourselves. So, like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, again, looking at this, like, reading about this, like, I've read probably the first chapter. It just gives New York vibes, which makes sense because it's literally based in New York. But other than that, no clue what I'm about to walk into reading this book. Everyone that I tell that I still need to read this book, they're just like, oh, like, girl, like, gear up for that. Like, you're not going to be emotionally ready. And so what I just know about my 10 before the end this year is that I'm not going to be emotionally ready for any of them. So, love that for me. But yeah, this is the final book on my 10 before the end. Here is my stack. Here's my 10 before the end. And will I read all 10 of these before the end? I better, because we are making it to my 100 book goal. And we cannot slump now. We got to keep going. We got to keep the momentum going. And so, yeah, thank you for sitting here. And if you've read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts. Please let me know what you think about all of these books. And let me know like which ones you vibe with, which ones you didn't vibe with, which ones you are constantly thinking about in your brain every single day. Thank you so much for watching this video. I wish you the best on your reading goals as well, whether you are also reading 100 books or whether you are reading one book. I hope we all find something that we enjoy reading. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!